इतिहास में भी नहीं हुआ कि एक पर्टिकुलर कम्युनिटी के लोगों को चुना गया अलग से और उनको फिर मारा गया। 3-4 घरों को अटैक किया गया, 3-4 घरों के लोगों को अटैक किया।
जब तक हम लोग ये नहीं सोचेंगे कि हिंदुस्तान हम सब का है, वो कोई भी धर्म हो, जब तक हम इकट्ठे नहीं होंगे मुल्क कभी आबाद नहीं होगा।
Namaste, Jai Hind and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. When former chief ministers of the erstwhile state of Jammu Kashmir, Ladakh turn around and say that जब तक हम लोग ये नहीं सोचेंगे कि हिंदुस्तान सबका है, अमन शांति नहीं होगी, one has to turn around and ask them the question, do they actually believe कि Jammu Kashmir सबका है? या is there no place for Hindus and Hindustan parast in Jammu Kashmir? Those who are targeted, ladies and gentlemen, are those who stand firmly with the tricolor, those who are Hindus, and those among the non-Hindu, non-Sikh community or among the Muslims who stand firmly with Hindus and with Hindustan. This has been the modus operandi of those puppets who have been doing the bidding of the enemy. This is the enemy's narrative in Jammu and Kashmir. And the theatre of action, when it becomes very dire in Kashmir, then the desperation moves towards Jammu, and that's exactly what is manifest. It's nothing but an act of cowardice, ladies and gentlemen, when these terrorists walk in and then they identify people who are Hindus and innocent civilians, and they just gun them down and then leave behind IEDs in the same house that also claims innocent in women and also young children. They spare nobody. These are heartless brutes who deserve perhaps the most brutal of deaths, and they will be accounted for by our security forces. One can be very, very assured of that. But what is the underlying thought process? The underlying thought process, and what perhaps should irk you and me as Hindustanis, as Bharatiya Nagariks, is those who try and give these elements cover fire. Those who desist from calling them terrorists and soft pedal them as militants, etc. Those who try and shift the blame elsewhere and will not take the bull by the horns that this is an underlying hatred for Hindus and Hindustan that is manifest, and they deliberately want to continue to sow the seeds of division so that they can get terror recruits. These are aspects which we need to learn from our history so that it does not get repeated. Those who don't learn from history often repeat the same mistakes. Let us remember that as a country, and let us stand solidly behind every single Indian citizen, every single person who stands with the tricolor, and say that we will not allow these elements to succeed, and we'll call out those who continue to give them cover fire. That ecosystem needs to be busted, ladies and gentlemen. We start with news coming through. Our investigations editor Manoj Gupta has been in touch with top intelligence sources who are also echoing what not just the LG but also other senior former top cops have echoed here on CNN News 18. That the lens is on re-establishing village defense committees to fight terror. The VDCs, they are there, but they need to be strengthened further, and it is these VDCs. There were nearly 26,500 plus of these members of the village defense committees who across Jammu, Doda, Kishtwar, that entire region and the Chenab Valley region were able to, in higher reaches where uniformed personnel find it very difficult to reach, were helping locals fight off these terrorists. That's what happened. The push to reboot the village defense committee with arms and also salaries. And these village defense committees were mixed. They were all members of every single person living in that region. All communities alike came together to form these VDCs. Threat of terror looms large in Chenab Valley and the Pir Panjal area, because in the past these areas have been hotbeds for recruitment, have been catchment areas. The terrorist banks are drying up. 50 plus of the 186 terrorists killed in the last 1 year in Jammu and Kashmir have been commanders. So they are leaderless, they are cadreless, and they want to push this for recruitment. Security forces have a small presence in Chenab and Pir Panjal areas, especially in the higher reaches, remote areas, and that's where these VDCs come into play. And top cops have suggested expanding this anti-terror grid via VDC. So if there is a strong carpet or a strong grid that's been cast in Kashmir and the neighboring districts in Kashmir Valley, then you need to do that and bring that into Jammu region too, and that too with the help of these VDCs. Rajouri, Kishtwar, Ramban, Poonch and the Chenab Valley have a mixed population, and any seeds of divide that are sown here can be a problem. VDCs can help quell communal tensions in these sensitive areas because they will do it collectively. All the Hindustan Parast have to come together and reject these Pak Parast, these enemy Parast elements who do not have respect for humanity, and even innocent citizens are their target. What are those people? They're nothing but cowards who think that it's great bravado to shoot somebody who's innocent, people who are defenseless. Key to ensure one community dominates village defense cemeteries that needs to be avoided. VDCs were constituted in 1995 in 10 districts of the Jammu region, and over 26,000 locals were recruited for village defense committees. It was mixed communities. It should not be largely dominated only by one single section or segment of society, and it has to be mixed. Many VDCs were disbanded by previous Jammu and Kashmir governments. They need to be reactivated. Tejinder Sodhi is with us. Tejinder, and this is something which was a call which was made by the locals who, after the LG's visit, now have cleared that Dangri Chowk area. The strike has been called out. But SPOHG, when he was with us in the evening, he also reiterated that you need to bring back the VDCs.
Indeed, Anand, you see, this is an undenying fact that if terrorism was eradicated from the mountainous districts of Doda, Kishtwar, Ramban, and also from the bordering district of Rajouri and Poonch, it was because of the support which the security forces got from the village defense committee members. Several village defense committee members who belong to various communities, they were from Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, and other communities from Gujjar, Bakarwal, who were living in those areas. They were the volunteers who came forward to fight terrorism. Government provided them with arms and ammunition so that they could fight terrorism. But gradually, successive state governments, they disbanded those village defense committees, took away arms from them. And you see, yesterday when this tragedy, this terror attack did take place in the Dangri village of Rajouri district, the local residents there, they were saying that had they got those weapons, had the VDC members present at that place, the tragedy would have been averted. Right. They could have given a befitting reply to the terrorists. Several terror attacks in the past were averted because the village defense committees were able to fire back on those terrorists. So several massacres of the minority community in the mountainous districts of erstwhile Doda district and also the bordering district of Poonch and Rajouri were averted because of the village defense committee members. Also, Anand, I would like to add that today when Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha was meeting the local residents in Rajouri, the members of the family members of these 6 martyrs, he promised that the government would now work toward reviving the village defense committees, would equip them with sophisticated weapons so that the tentacles, the terrorists are not allowed to spread their tentacles in these areas. Yes, Anand.
Well, thank you for your inputs, Tejinder. But largely what also stands out is that there are those who continue to give these elements cover fire. There are those who will still continue to try and soft pedal these elements. What's on display, ladies and gentlemen, undeniably is hatred. Hatred for Hindus and Hindustan, and that's the reason why Hindus are being hunted, or those who back Hindus and Hindustan are also being hunted. Will this ecosystem continue to deny it? Will they continue to give this kind of cover fire? Is a question that remains. Yes, there is more that needs to be done to ensure, and of course the responsibility lies on the administration, that this targeting and this willful targeting does not happen. These attacks should not happen, and what has worked in the past should have already been activated. Do we need the death of 4 civilians, a blast, and the claiming of the lives of 2 more additional, including a young child, just 5 years old? Do we need all of that for us to wake up and say, all right, let's reactivate this? These are also questions that remain. Aarti Tikku, founder, editor-in-chief of the New Indian with us. Brigadier Anil Gupta, Jammu and Kashmir BJP spokesperson with us. We have Ahmed Ayaz, political analyst, and Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, former DG Infantry, also with us. But first, I'm going to go across to Ankur Sharma of Ikjut Jammu. He is with us at this point. He's the president, Ikjut Jammu. Ankur Sharma, we've raised these. We've talked about issues of Jammu in the past, and we've seen that Jammu has a different dynamic compared to Kashmir. But when you look at Jammu and Kashmir, and when there is a terror footprint, we have had a fantastic year in 2022 in terms of tourist footfall, in terms of no hartals, in terms of maximum number of terrorists being gunned down, and this entire system being weeded out, cracked down upon the OGWs, those who are sympathizers, etc. We are also seeing a shift in the strategy. We are also seeing that the attacks are moving towards Jammu and Rajouri, Poonch, this area. There is also selective targeting of Kashmiri Pandits, government employees, and like I said, Hindustan Parast. This is exactly what's happened today or yesterday.
Yes, absolutely. So this first proposition that probably some lightning strike has been executed against terrorists and they're running away is a false propaganda that this government has been peddling now since years. As a matter of fact, the institution of radicalization and indoctrination, the Islamic radicalization and indoctrination are flourishing in J&K. You'll be surprised to know that Ahle Hadith, which is the mother organization, ideological mother of Lashkar-e-Taiba, has religious infrastructure in Jammu province. And recently, Lashkar modules were busted in Jammu province. I think the first thing that this government has to learn is to stop lying now. I'll read out for you what the army says and what the police says on same date. I'm reading a newspaper report of 23rd November 2022, page 10 of the newspaper. It says, the army says 300 militants active in J&K, 160 militants waiting at launchpad across border, says army. And on the same day, in the same newspaper, you have a newspaper report saying security situation in J&K improving, number of terrorists below 100, DGP. So army says 300 and 160 waiting, DGP says on the same day 100. Then you have the home minister of the country saying on 28th October that new era has started in J&K, terror incidents down by 34%. And on the very same day, you have the Union Additional Home Secretary deposing before the UN Counter-Terrorism Committee and saying that terror activities up in J&K since 2021, India tells UN panel. So that is the state of affairs that we have been witnessing. And along with this, you have this phenomena, this policy paradigm of the state of India of remaining in denial about this process of Hindu genocide. These killings yesterday are a grim reminder of the fact that Hindu genocide in J&K is a continuous unabated phenomena for only the reason that the state of India continues to remain in denial about this process of Hindu genocide. As long as the state of India continues to deny the existence of Hindu genocide, as long as the state of India is not ready to call the problem by its real name, which is jihad in J&K, I do not think things will improve, and the government, probably because of its policy structure, is facilitating ultimately the severe worst genocide of Hindus, and yesterday's killing are a clear manifestation of the same.
See, along with, you've said Hindu genocide, there is no arguing the fact that this was done to try and cleanse and ethnically cleanse and demographically alter the status of Kashmir altogether, and also largely push them out of Kashmir Valley. This was what the narrative was. And anybody who stood with Hindus, anybody who stood with the tricolor or Hindustan was also targeted and also considered dispensable. So that was also another that was also another aspect which stood out. So, but Brigadier,
that's a false proposition. I'll just intervene. That's a false proposition for the reason that Hindus are being killed just because they are Hindus.
Correct.
Muslims and others are killed because they may not politically support their movement. They might be seeing that this Muslim is working with the Indian establishment for his own earning and livelihood, and maybe
correct. So that's what I said. Two aspects. One, that you are a Hindu. Two, that you are Hindustan Parast. That means you are working for the tricolor, and that is why you are working for Hindustan, and you support Hindus. So then you also need to be dispensed with. So both ways.
The dichotomy of a believer and a non-believer, the kafir and the non-kafir.
Correct.
The dichotomy. I think we are using the situation here. Jihad very clearly defines, outlines and dichotomize this distinction. We have to understand that the LG of the state of the UT is on record to say that people should not see Hindu killings in Kashmir from a religious angle. That is absolutely outrageous. That is absolutely false. I mean, there have been clearly declarations by the terrorist organizations. Just because you are Hindus, we have to Islamize the place. You have to be shunted out. Have we forgotten 1990?
Correct,
They talk
but-
about Kashmir files.
But
then
you
take
also
the other stand when it comes.
one second, Ankur. Let's not just get ahead of ourselves. There is also another aspect. The aspect is that let's try and continue to sow the divide between the existing community, which also is living peacefully, which is accepting each other. Let's try and divide them. Let's try and further divide them, because that also serves an ulterior motive for the enemy. The ulterior motive for the enemy is that if I have Hindus and Muslims at loggerheads, and if there are situations of communal riots, I also create an active breeding ground and possibilities for fresh recruitment of cadre. That's also a reality, because there are those who don't want violence, who reject them outright. They are also targeted. So that's also a reality. But you have raised a few points, Brigadier Anil Gupta, that the security forces themselves present different pictures on the same day. The government of the day is also presenting a different picture. So either you accept or you deny. You can't accept and deny at the same time. That's the criticism.
No, the problem is that you play with figures. You pick up figures from somewhere to play with them. The fact remains that terrorism has been on decline. And there is no denying the fact. The terrorism has been on decline. The incidents of terror take place as long as the terror ecosystem continues to flourish in Jammu and Kashmir. Acts of terror will continue to happen. It's very difficult to predict when a terrorist will act and where he will act. Therefore, to say that different figures are being given and to sport with that, to say that government is lying, I don't take that. I don't buy that. One must accept the fact that terrorism, from where it was and where it is now, it's gone down. The very fact that less than 100 people have been locally recruited during the last year is a big achievement. The very fact that the number of terror incidents has gone down, number of civilians killings have gone down ever since 370 was removed. So all these things point towards improving law and order situation. But yes, terror incidents do take place, and I am a firm believer that as long as last gun is there, the terror incidents will continue. And last gun will go only the day the terror ecosystem is totally wiped off from J&K. To wipe that off is a difficult job, because in the terror ecosystem are involved not only the terrorists, but the locals, the local support, the local infrastructure. Because a terrorist without local support is like a fish out of water. The terrorists survive here because of some sort of local support. Till such time that local support dies, then the local support doesn't come only from the civilians. It comes from even organs of the state, some people in the uniform. So many of them are involved. And I also feel that some politicians may be involved in it. So all these things will take time. So therefore, we must be patient. Yes, what has happened in Rajouri is, I fully agree with you that Pakistan since long has been trying to have communal rights in this Jammu region. Because Pakistan is not happy with the status quo. Pakistan is not happy with the peaceful coexistence of the communities in this region. So therefore, they have been trying their best. And there have been a number of incidents. Last year also saw near Mender temple, the terrorists were caught. They were trying to blow up the temple near Mender. Earlier, they tried it in Doda Kishtwar. Doda Kishtwar area has become peaceful.
So if this is my research team, sir, has also sent me information that this activity in this Rajouri Poonch area has been revived after 2013. Since 2018, 2019, it's been on the up. So till now, why have the VDCs not been brought back? Why is it that there is rightful criticism if the VDCs have not been strengthened, the salaries have not been paid, and they have not been reinstated in all these places? If erstwhile governments did away with them, they should have been brought back since 2018, 2019. Ever since the abrogation of 370, VDCs should have been reactivated.
Anand, I fully agree with you. The problem of VDCs was that there was not a proper policy for VDCs. There was no policy for the salary, no policy for the recruitment. The previous governments had done away with it. BJP always fought for VDCs. It was with the active involvement of BJP that in March 2022, the government of India, the Home Ministry, declared that VDCs will be re-established, they'll be reorganized, and they will be equipped with high-tech weapons. But unfortunately, I'm very, very sad to say, unfortunately, nothing happened since 2022. That's very sad. And that is some investigation. Why this Who was responsible for this?
So if
Who
it was approved in
responsible?
March 2022, Jan 2023, you have had to have the LG today promise again that the VDCs will be strengthened. I'm just going to go across to that and then I'll bring in Arti Tikku Singh, Ahmed Ayaz and also General Kulkarni. Quickly, LG Manoj Sinha met with the families of the civilians martyred in the terror attack in Rajouri, and he also then he met with the kin of the victims. He also then has assured that they will crush terror infrastructure. More importantly, he has said that the administration has given full freedom to the security forces to go ahead and attack and counter-attack and also get the perpetrators, bring them to book. But more, he's also turned around and said that the village defense committees will be strengthened. He has announced compensation to the families and also government job to the next of kin, although he said nothing can compensate the loss of a life and loved one. But he's also thereafter chaired a high security meeting. And I must tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that the strike and that entire ghirao of the Dangri Chowk has been lifted after the locals were reassured by the LG Manoj Sinha. But there are has enough been done that's important? Let's listen into what the LG had to say quickly.
ये पता है कि मौत का कोई मुआवजा नहीं होता, प्रशासन का अपना धर्म है। जो व्यवस्थाएं हैं उनका पूरा इस्तेमाल करके उन परिवारों की देखभाल हम लोग करेंगे। सरकारी नौकरी भी देंगे, आर्थिक मुआवजा भी देंगे। कुछ कंसर्न्स उन लोगों ने उठाए हैं, उन कंसर्न्स को भी हम हल करेंगे। अभी एक सिक्योरिटी की भी मीटिंग की गई है, 2-3 फैसले हम लोगों ने किए हैं। एक तो इस मामले की गंभीरता से जांच और तह तक पहुंचना, क्योंकि ये नापाक पोशी से फिर से वो स्थिति लाने की वो किसी हाल में नहीं होने दिया जाएगा। कुछ लोगों ने सवाल उठाया लैप्सेस का, तो उसके लिए एक इंक्वायरी गठित करके पता करेंगे। जिन लोगों ने भी इस घटना को अंजाम दिया है, पूरा हिसाब बराबर किया जाएगा।
आरती टिक्कू सिंह।
Anand, it is good to hear that LG Manoj Sinha said कि हिसाब बराबर किया जाएगा, but unfortunately the government of India still does not seem to have the courage to call this act of terror by its real name. It is Islamic Jihad. You cannot just get away from this fact. The fact is that there are people across the border, across the line of control, who believe in Islamic Jihad, who have fought wars over Jammu and Kashmir with the motivation of bringing Jammu and Kashmir under an Islamic flag. So we should not be under any illusion that this is something else, that this, as LG Manoj Sinha has recently said, that we shouldn't see this in religious terms, but it is. Pakistan was founded on an Islamist agenda. The two-nation theory is an Islamist agenda. The war on Jammu and Kashmir in the last 75 years is an Islamist agenda. Having said that, I mean, look at the shameless politicians of Jammu and Kashmir. Farooq Abdullah, as usual, peddling the same rhetoric with no meaning. It's just pontification. It's just, platitudes. He does not have the courage to call this out. He does not have the courage to blame Pakistan. He does not have the courage to blame Islamists who are responsible for eliminating and ethnically cleansing Hindus first they cleanse them in Kashmir, and now, as usual, they are targeting Jammu region. This has been a pattern for the last 32 years. Whenever Pakistan sees stiff resistance and stiff fight from the Indian security forces in Kashmir, they shift their attention to Jammu. That's precisely what has happened, and that is why I agree with the government of India when they say that there is a decline in terrorism in Kashmir. It is true, absolutely correct. There is a decline because the government of India made tremendous efforts since 2019 to fight back terrorism in Islamic Jihad in Kashmir. Now that Pakistan is a basket case, it is begging, borrowing and stealing money from around the world, and it has actually nothing else. So they are going to mobilize Islamists across their country, and they will try to, the Sharifs and others, the Bhuttos, all of them will come together to rile up Islamists against Hindus and India.
No.
Once again, I would say that the problem here is the denial of the government of India to call this by its real name. Also, I would say that in the last 32 years, in the last 75 years, we know the minorities in Jammu and Kashmir are vulnerable. They will always remain vulnerable. By logic, the government of India should have brought the minorities of Jammu and Kashmir under a conscription system. They should have trained them, armed them, weaponized them to defend themselves, because it is simply impossible for any government, for any number of security forces to defend every single minority person in Jammu and Kashmir. We know that Jammu and Kashmir is a border state. It is a state with line of control against Pakistan.
Here is the problem, Aarti
We know
Tikku Singh.
that there is an Islamist agenda.
Here is the problem, Aarti Tikku Singh. The problem is that the moment the entire definition of minorities under the National Commission for Minorities is nationalized, Jammu and Kashmir minorities don't become deemed as minorities. They, despite being much lesser in number in Jammu and Kashmir, continue to be part of the majority nationally. See, this is all a huge issue as far as the government of India needs to address. In 9 states and union territories in our country today, Hindus are minorities, but they don't get the minority rights, nor do they get the minority empowerment, nor do they get the minority protection that should be due to them. That includes the state of Jammu and Kashmir or the union territory of Jammu and Kashmir. See, these are realities, but you are right. And the other part, General Kulkarni, is Aarti ji, please conclude quickly, and then I'll go to General Kulkarni. Please conclude. I interrupted you. Yeah.
Quickly. Yes, you may be right that when you think about the minorities of Jammu and Kashmir in relation with the majority of the country, yes, they do form part of the majority, but remember, Jammu and Kashmir is a border state. Remember that Jammu and Kashmir is adjacent to Pakistan along the line of control. Remember that Jammu and Kashmir is a state over which Pakistan has fought 4 wars with India and has continued the 30-year-long proxy war against India. Remember that Jammu and Kashmir will always be a target for Islamist agenda. It will always be an Islamic jihad project for Pakistan.
No, it's been an Islamist jihad project since the 12th century. See, it's been an Islamist jihad project since the 12th century.
Absolutely.
So it continues to be. But what we do as a country and what we do as a conscious government and an administration is important. And General Kulkarni, the fact is that even within the corps and in the army, armed forces, security system, they still call them militants. They don't call them terrorists. How are we going to hold politicians and others to sympathizers to account? Because the forces themselves, only now, some of them have started openly calling them terrorists. But they slip into this soft language of militants immediately.
About it, everybody knows that Pakistan is best at using terrorism as an instrument of state policy. We all are aware of it. We know what exactly Jaish-e-Mohammed is up to. We know what ISI is doing as it. We know that terrorism is on the back foot in the valley, and therefore the spread of it south of Pir Panjal is wanting to garner some kind of a local support. As regards the demography is concerned, Rajouri district obviously has about 60% plus Muslims and about 35% almost of Hindus. But Rajouri town per se and the village itself has majority Hindus, not minority Hindus, a majority Hindus. Yes, there's a need to resuscitate the village defense committees. That to definitely add to it. But you saw what has happened, the Fidain attack which occurred during independence time, attacking an army camp. All these target killing are bound for sensationalization. And you have to find all kinds of groups will come up. Some people, anti-fascist front will say, we will not let India take up G20 presidency. We will ensure we sensationalize the entire issue of terrorism in India. All these talks and all these things are bound to happen. We have to take steps. We now know that drones and all are being used as logistics and all these kind of things. Obviously, after 2008, there was a general feeling that south of Pir Panjal, that militancy has been controlled. We cannot get complacent because we really need to be up to it. Is the valley, if it is there, they would want to spread in Jammu region, and therefore the need is to ensure that they don't have a foothold in the Jammu region, and that they should be on the back foot in the valley itself. And therefore, these kind of things, we will ensure that these kind of things are kept under control. Obviously, all of us are working towards it, but yes, these kind of things, as what Brigadier Gupta said, they have a local support, a bit of a local support, and things of kind. The dubious talks by the local politicians over there, there might be lip sympathy with what is happening over there, but at the same time encouraging their own cadres to create kind of a fissures between the people over there. All these things are bound to be there, but we have to take precaution. We have to ensure that these things are kept under total check and control. Village defense committees.
Sir,
is one
the
aspect.
larger point, sir, is that you can do hard physical action. You may say that the number of terror activities have come down, but as Ankur was pointing out, has radicalization come down? Have radical outfits been, have they been wrapped up, and have their operations been wrapped up, or are they still getting a full free hand in going about and doing their business of radicalization? These are aspects which remain. And what happens to those people who are still openly sympathizing? Ahmed Ayaz, thank you for your patience. Please. Go ahead, please.
It's to me?
Yeah, Ji.
You see, Anand, what has happened in Rajouri yesterday and even today, it's indeed very, very saddening, tragic, and needs to be condemned. With this gives us the sense of the total security situation prevailing here cities, despite tall claims that things have normalized that way, that militancy reduced. Well, we are going by the numbers. We say sometimes that numbers are reduced, as somebody was saying, or may somebody say. Maybe a fact that numbers is good, but the question is the practical, what's happening on the ground. If you see that this has, we have never seen it happening in the past, the way killing is taking place, and people are killed inside their homes, and the next day people are gathering to protest, and there are bomb blasts taking place. I mean, this is a different kind of scenario. This is a different kind of, strategies being adopted. And to say that now that VDCs will be reactivated, and do you think that security forces are not, competent enough to deal with the situation? So far as we are concerned, they are doing it very competently, with total might. And when you now reactivate the, VDCs, then it will give two messages. One, that the security forces, this will give a message to security forces, perhaps they are not doing it competently, and then you need to give them the reinforcement like VDCs which were earlier there, and then that will give a message that the situation is not that good as it was earlier, because these were disbanded when situation has improved. Naturally, they got disbanded because situation had improved. And now that when you get back the VDCs, and then that means the situation is again going back to the abnormalcy. And more so, at the top of it, it will give another message that the government saying that situation has come down militancy-wise, terror activities terror activities.
No, but please tell me, Ahmed Ayaz, should villages be prepared, and should villages be trained just because if situation becomes better, or should they be trained and alert at all points in time, because terror does not pick up, it is their place and choice. Those who defend, those who attack will choose the place of attack. Those who have to defend, they have to defend everywhere. That's how the mentality is. The other part is, sir, that why is it that still now there is a hesitancy to call them terrorists? Terrorism and terrorists. Why militants and militancy? Why these soft words? Why try to give this a homegrown, ingenuous kind of a picture every time? The more you do that, the more you encourage them. That means that there is a certain fear in calling them terrorists, or there is a certain reluctance or people that you will not call them terrorists. But Brigadier Anil Gupta, please respond. How would you see this? Reviving these VDCs.
I fully agree with my co-panelists, Aarti and Ankush, that Jammu and Kashmir is a victim of jihadi terrorism, and there is no doubt about it. We all accept it and we understand it. Now the question which was raised was what action is taken against radicalization. Anand, the pillar of radicalization in Jammu and Kashmir was Jamaat-e-Islami, and the actions which have been taken against Jamaat-e-Islami and to wipe out its ill effects, you well know what has happened in the last few, I would say, almost a year now. So therefore, action is being taken against radicalization. As far as Al-Hadith is concerned, it's a sect by itself. It's something like the Wahhabis. Yes, like Wahhabis, the Al-Qaeda was motivated by the Wahhabism. Similarly, maybe the Lashkar is motivated by Al-Hadith. But then Al-Hadith and being a sect, it's a little difficult for the government to act upon a particular sect. Because then again, questions of favoritism and sectarianism will come. But definitely, it is on the radar. Action will be taken against all those who are spreading radicalization in Jammu and Kashmir.
Well, sir, Jammu has become fertile territory, and this is exactly what the intent has been, to sow the seeds of divide among the communities who have largely remained peaceful there, and then try and once again make it a fertile ground for recruitment. So there are devious means. If you have played the game of Go, this is what is happening, that they continue to keep changing the battlefield and the scenarios, and the strategies continue to define. So you are focusing on one area, whereas something else is happening somewhere else. So this is something that we have to wisen up to, and we have to be 2 steps ahead of the terrorists. We cannot follow the enemy, and we cannot be shadowing the enemy at all points in time. This is a reality that we have to all wake up to. I thank you all. I have run out of time. I thank you all for joining us here on debate number 1 on the right stand. We're going to take a very short break, ladies and gentlemen. And from Jammu and Kashmir, we shift the spotlight to Kerala, where the excise minister of Kerala has tried to sow a divide among Hindus. He's tried to create a divide between Adi Shankaracharya and Sri Narayana Guru. And the allegation that's been made by the MOSMEA V. Muralidharan is that this is being done deliberately for votes. Maligning an Acharya for mileage is the question that we ask when we come back. Stay with us.